Today is Good Friday, which really is kind of a weird name for what we celebrate on today. Historically, throughout church history, Good Friday is the day where we celebrate the death of Jesus. 2,000 years ago, this is the day when Jesus hung on a tree and died. And when you look at the story, it seems weird to celebrate that. We're talking about a guy who was innocent, lived a perfect, blameless life, who devoted his life to healing people and to teaching people how to live better lives, to make more of themselves, and ultimately just fell into the hands of a corrupt government who was trying to advance their own causes, their own schemes that put him to death. And so I think sometimes we think of it almost like Martin Luther King Jr. Day, right? Where we're not celebrating his death, but we're celebrating what he stood for in his life, the things that he accomplished, the things that he did. And so while it was a tragic ending, we're celebrating the things that he stood for while he was alive. Or maybe you think of it kind of like a soldier, right? Where it's like he went off to battle and was willing to sacrifice himself for the cause. But obviously we wish he would have survived, but the fact that he was willing to sacrifice himself, we're going to celebrate that. But really, none of those kind of hit the mark, because we really are celebrating the death of Jesus. We're celebrating the fact that he died. It's not like a funeral where we're celebrating his life. We're celebrating the very fact that he died. But the reason for that is because Jesus didn't die a victim. Jesus makes it very clear that nobody took his life from him. In the book of John chapter 10, he says, nobody's going to take my life from me. I lay it down of my own accord. That Jesus wasn't just some victim of a corrupt government. That he actually was a sacrifice. He laid his life down for our sake. That this was an on-purpose thing. That he did it in our place, for our place. Look at the way that Luke talks about it. At the very end of the life of Jesus, the very last words that he says. It says this in Luke chapter 23, verse 46. Then Jesus, calling out with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last. Now when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, certainly this man was innocent. That even a Roman official, a Roman soldier, was able to look at Jesus and the way that he died and the things that were happening and able to go, there's something different about this guy. This isn't just another political prisoner that we've taken. This isn't just a thief or a criminal that's died like everybody else. Like, there's something different about him. There's things that surrounded his death that makes it feel like that this guy, he says, was innocent. And if you look at the death of Jesus, the crucifixion of Jesus, if you kind of map out the timeline for what happened when, what you see is that Jesus actually died very quickly for a crucifixion. He really wasn't on the cross that long. Like, most people lived a lot longer on the cross. The torture, the suffering was a lot longer. There's even a passage of the Bible where they walk up to the cross and they're surprised that he's already dead. They're like, he didn't last longer than this? Like, I don't understand it. And it's because Jesus lays down his life. His last words are, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. That he's intentionally laying his life down for our sake. That he knew very well what he was walking into. This wasn't a surprise to him. This wasn't confusing to him. He said he had to lay his life down for us. But even in the midst of that, Jesus says these last words, into your hands I commit my spirit. And he doesn't just come up with them out of thin air. He's quoting a psalm. Specifically, he's quoting Psalm 31. Psalm 31:3 says, For you are my rock and my fortress, and for your name's sake you lead me and guide me. You take me out of the net they have hidden for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord, faithful God. That even in his last words, Jesus is pointing us still to the faithfulness of God. He's saying, listen, I'm literally on a cross. I'm literally facing death. I am actively laying my life down for your sake. And in the midst of that, he's saying, you can trust God. That no matter what it is that we're going through, no matter how hard it is or how much we're suffering, that we can still trust God. That literally on a cross, Jesus is saying, God is still someone that you can trust. And he's also providing the very proof of that as he's dying on a cross for you. That God is somebody worth trusting. That he really is a rock and a fortress for us. And then that last line, he's redeemed us. that we've been set free because of the sacrifice that Jesus made for us, that his death and his resurrection brings us victory. That is the truth that we celebrate on Good Friday. And that is why we can honestly say today is a good day, a day of celebration, not a day of mourning. Because we get victory because of the sacrifice of Jesus. We can commit our spirit into his hands because he is a rock and a fortress for us.